And who here has heard of hoarding? Have you ever heard of hoarding? And more specifically, have you heard of the Hoarders TV show? Have you ever watched that? Hoarding is this idea that you accumulate things and you just collect things, and it's almost to the point, and not almost to the point, it is to the point where it's a mental health condition where you can't, it's like compulsive. You can't not collect things. You can't not hold on to things. In fact, the Mayo Clinic, I have a definition here, defines it as a persistent difficulty discarding or parting with possessions because of a perceived need to save them. A person with hoarding disorder experiences distress at the thought of getting rid of the items. So if you try to get rid of those items, or if somebody tries to force them to get rid of those items, you experience distress. And if you've watched the show, you see how distressed they can be when they try to confront them. It says excessive accumulation of items regardless of actual value occurs. So regardless of the value, even to the person, because value can be pretty subjective. It can be, based upon what you want, the person who has the item. But even if it has no value to them, they still don't want to give it up or discard it. So in the case of the TV show, what you'll find and what you're going to see is people will hoard anything and everything. In this case, it's going to be clothes. The example I gave, I just tried to take a longer clip and I sort of put it down so we can get a taste of it. But if you watch the show, you can see people eventually just hoard garbage, like literal garbage. And it's like, why are they holding on to it? And it's something deep within them. And it's something that I think is very important for all of us to sort of look into ourselves and say, why do we hold on to stuff that we don't need? So let's take a look at this. So, obviously the show is an hour long, and that's just giving you a taste of what it's like. So they have a person who's suffering from this compulsive hoarding, condition, and they try to have the family confront them, try to have experts confront them, and to help them to try to deal with their hoarding tendencies. And most of the time it doesn't work because it's so deeply within them. And part of the advantage of being a preacher is I get to sort of have you guys be my therapist, and I can sort of let what's happening to me out. And so can you guys guess what I hoard? Any of you? Yeah, comic books, that's right. And I thought about it a lot over the years, over the past few years, because Sarah is not somebody who is a hoarder, or at least she is very good at being able to throw stuff away, and she's the expert who comes and helps me, exactly. So that's forced me to sort of be like, well, why do I hold on to stuff? And I held on to even literally up until a couple months ago, I found even more stuff at my parents' home that I had held on to, and finally, got rid of it and sold it or threw it away. But I've done that. I kept a lot of things from my childhood as I became an adult. And then when I started to collect comic books as an adult, I kind of went crazy and bought thousands of comic books over a few years. And it's taken this long for me to realize, like, what am I doing? Why did I do that? And a lot of it had to do with just my desire to want to hold on to my childhood, or to connect with a simpler time. And if you look at a lot of what these hoarders go through, the people who suffer from this, they've had some sort of trauma or some sort of significant event that they associate with these things, and if they get rid of the things, then they have to deal with their emotions. And who here likes to really deal with their deep emotions? Nobody really particularly likes it. Like, some of us know that it's what we need to do in order to get healthy and get better, but it's not particularly fun. And so that is what people do when they hold on to things. And I've really had to, again, I've pared down a lot of my collection, and I've sold off a lot of things, and I've actually tried to really understand, not minimalism. Who here has heard of the term minimalism, right? I've heard of that too, and I don't know if I subscribe to minimalism. I don't, but I do like the idea of essentialism. I want to show the cover of this book that I read. Essentialism. I don't necessarily, recommend this book, but if you want to read it, it helped me. And it was coming up with the idea or coming to the conclusion that I should really only hold on to things that I currently have use or value for. If I haven't used something in a very long time, or if I haven't, if it's just sitting there and it's not really serving any purpose in my life, then I have to really question why I still have it. Why do we hold on to things that we don't use any longer? And so I have embraced essentialism. Again, not just in things, but also in the things that I do. I've tried to understand in my life, there are many things that I could be doing with my life, but perhaps there's only a handful of things that I can best be doing, that God would use me most efficiently to do because of my talents and my passions or desires for those things. And it's the idea of not letting yourself get stretched so thin that you're sort of not doing well or being excellent at anything. And so, like anything else, choosing what's essential in my life in terms of things or what I do, it's not easy and it doesn't come naturally. And so like anything else, you have to sort of work on it. You have to build it up like a muscle. And you have to ask yourself what really matters, right? What really matters in my life? And then make decisions that try to manifest what really matters in my life. Saying all this because I think this ties into our passage today and the overall pursuit of the Jesus revolution. This series, we're looking at what Jesus said in order to bring about revolution. Again, Jesus was speaking to a people and in a context where they hated their situation. They did not want to be under Roman rule. Who wants to be governed by people who don't care about you and, in fact, consider you to be lower people and slaves and things of that nature? So Jesus wanted to bring a message of revolution to the people. But unlike what they were used to, and sadly unlike what they were going to do in the decades that followed, it wasn't going to be a violent revolution. So there are a few points. You can put Jesus revolution on the screen because there are a few points that I can make to remind us of what we've looked at. Firstly, the Jesus revolution is non-violent, right? Jesus said that we should, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword, right? And the reason why it's non-violent is because we're not fighting against fellow human beings. They're not our enemy. Our enemy is the spiritual side of things, right? It's evil spiritual forces. And so, in fact, our heart's desire should be to save our enemies, should be to love them and to pray for them, because in and of themselves, they're not our enemies. They're just a manifestation of our enemy. And so we looked at some ways that we can love our enemies and be a good example for them and to them. And last week we looked at how we can be salt and light. We can be the salt of the earth. If you are salt, then that means you're adding flavor to the food, right? But if you don't add any flavor, then you're useless. You're not being what you should be. Or if you are a light source and you don't add any illumination to the room, then what's the point? So we must be something that brings a positive influence to this world. That's what it means to be salt or light, being a good influence on the world and a good example. Today we're going to look at heavenly priorities and the idea of that the Jesus revolution is made up of those who actually take stock of their priorities and say, there are certain things in my life that are more important than others. And Jesus is going to give us the way to understand how to make that distinction. So, in fact, our passage for today is from Matthew chapter 6. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, "Don't store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Instead, store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal." So there's a few things we can say about this passage to help us to understand what Jesus was saying. And the very first thing I want to say is this, that the contrast is between treasures in heaven and treasures on earth. And he's not making a contrast between the things in this life and the things in the afterlife, right? Earth and heaven being a contrast between this life and the afterlife, that's not what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about the quality of our treasures. Treasures that are earthly, of earthly quality, or treasures that are of heavenly quality. And what is he saying? Again, just to sort of break this down, treasures that are stored on earth can deteriorate and or be stolen, right? And treasures that are stored in heaven cannot deteriorate or be stolen. So the idea here is there are treasures that are of quality that they can be destroyed, they can be stolen, they're not lasting, they're temporary. Whereas there are treasures that are eternal, that are lasting, that cannot be taken by others or taken by the elements. That which is temporary versus that which lasts forever. And so, what are the treasures that are temporary? Well, they are things like money, right? In fact, whenever I think of what do you think of when you hear the word treasure? Any ideas? Gold? Again, what was that? Yeah, did you say pirates? Yeah. Who here remembers the Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck cartoon where they find a bunch of treasure? So I always think of this whenever I hear the word treasure. So yes, money or gold and things of that nature, things that are of monetary value, is usually what I think of, and most of us thinks of when we talk about treasure. In fact, just a few verses later in Matthew 6, Jesus does bring up money, and he's talking about how you can't serve both God and money. You can only serve one or the other. And Jesus is not anti-money, and the people who sort of have this weird sort of idea that money itself is evil, it's not biblical and it doesn't even make a whole lot of sense, because money is just a medium of exchange. It's something that was developed over time in order for people to be able to give each other things without having to use the actual things that you own. You can give something that represents value instead. And there's a whole topic of that. We did a whole sermon on that last year about money is the root of all evil, when in fact the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. It's loving money or wealth more than God or over God, which is the problem. It's not money itself. So, but nevertheless, money does sort of represent the treasures here on earth. And in fact, money has value now, right? It allows us to buy products and services. And here's the thing. If we only focus on that which has value now, then we are missing out on the things that will last forever, the things that are related to God. And so if we contrast the treasures here on earth with the treasures in heaven, the treasures that are related to God, we find that the things that are related to God are not necessarily money related or wealth related, although it could be that could be part of it, but it's things that bring us closer to God, things that bring us and connect us to God. So that's what I think treasures in heaven are. The things that we invest in now that indeed last forever. The actions that produces within us commitment and devotion to God and his ways. Or you can think of connecting it to what we talked about last week, the actions that we do that help people or influence people to themselves be committed and devoted to God and his ways. So when we love others, and when we are praying for others and even our enemies loving them, we're storing up treasures in heaven, because even though that might not get us anything in this, anything tangible in this life, or something that can be of value to us like money. In fact, you might lose your job if you love your enemy or if you do things of that nature. But what you're instilling in them is you're instilling in them a good influence, an influence to want to be devoted to God. Strengthening your relationships, right? Again, making right choices when it comes to your relationships, it might cost you in the short term or that which is temporary, but you're helping those situations, you're helping yourself and you're helping others to realize what's more important, to realize being devoted to God is what's of most importance. Being kind to others, being gracious to others, being understanding, right? We can go on and on. The things that will instill in people a connection to God are the things that are treasures in heaven, as opposed to the treasures on earth. Are we getting the distinction here? That doing things to build up treasures in heaven might not be even sinful. It might be just normal, focusing on your wealth and on your money just for its own sake is treasures on earth, is storing up treasures on earth. But if you use those same resources to bring people to God, to bring yourself to God and bring people to God, well, that is storing up treasures in heaven. So that it all comes down to this. What is Jesus trying to say here? He's basically trying to say, where is your priority? What takes priority in your life? What is important to us? So you can think of it this way. Are our lives set up in such a way where the things of God and the things that bring us to God are of top and most importance, and the things that don't might be good or beneficial to us in the short term or in our lives right now, but they take a lower priority in our lives? So which one takes more priority, top priority? The things that last or the things that won't? And Jesus said, wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. So get this. Each of us has a way in our lives right now to figure out exactly where our heart is, what our priority is. Just think about our lives. Think about your life right now. What do you do throughout your life? Throughout each day? What takes top priority? Right? Whatever it is that takes top priority in your life, that's where your heart is. That's where your desires are, right? I can only use myself as an example. I would hate to use somebody else as an example and embarrass them. So I'll use myself as an example. My top priority is my kids and my wife and my role here as pastor. I rarely do anything outside of those three things. But that's because those are the most important things to me. Those are the things that in my life, allow me to help myself and help others be committed to God. Now, not everybody's going to be able to have their job be something that brings people closer to God. But maybe we shouldn't even think of it that way, because even if your top priority is your job, think about what it's doing. Is it providing for your family? Is it providing for your children? Is it allowing them to have sustenance and opportunities to grow and to achieve things? Well, then guess what? Those are treasures in heaven as well, right? I don't want us to be thinking that the contrast here is between that which is secular or worldly versus that which is churchish and godly in that sense. That's not the contrast. The contrast is between anything in our lives that brings us closer to God or that allows us to be building an environment in which other people can grow closer to God, right? So think about that. If you believe that what you're doing in your life is for a good purpose ultimately, and it's not for a purpose that is leading you away from God, but it's bringing you or your family closer to God, then that's what's going to tell you where your priorities are, right? And I can't decide that for you. This is the wonderful thing about being a preacher is I don't need to decide that for you. God himself will convict you as I say this, right? As I say this and you think about this, God himself will say inside of you, oh yeah, I know what's going on in there, right? That's what God will say to you. I know what's going on. I know what's most important, right? So I do want to be very clear. It's not perhaps as simple as it might seem that the treasure stored on earth, well, that just has to do with money. Because money, again, can be used for very, very godly purposes that bring us closer to God. In fact, that's why we ask for money. That's why we need financial giving, is because we believe that it enables us to do the ministry that we're doing here as a church. But each of us has to ask ourselves and ask God to show us what it is that's in our hearts. And when it all comes down to this, and if, Anna, if you don't mind, if you can get Sarah to come. I want us to think of it this way. Because as I'm saying that I can't decide for you, and each of you, and I'm including myself, we each need to ask God to show us where our priorities are. And look, that's not easy, and that's not going to come like that. So guess what? It's a really a lifelong journey of pursuing wisdom. The way Paul put it here is to pursue the things which make for peace. And here's more so why I included this verse: the building up of one another. If we can make our top priority that which brings about peace between us and God, peace between each other, and we also build each other up, that should be our pursuit, right? That should be our top priority. If we want to have heavenly priorities, let's focus on that. And we want God to be our vision, right?